How's it going, everyone? This is Boots with Snapkeep Arcade, back with another new player's guide to the multiverse. This week we're going to talk about Magic's famous black-aligned planeswalker, Liliana Vess. Liliana Vess is a human planeswalker and a master of necromancy, using black mana to reanimate the dead, corrupt the living, and unlock power from death. She is charismatic, witty, and attractive, but profoundly egocentric. Though she appears to be in her 30s, she is actually centuries old. After the mending, she made a pact with 4 demons, Kothafed, Grizzlebrand, Razaketh, and Belzenlock, to secure her youth and power. Liliana Vess grew up in Benalia, on Dominaria, under the thumb of her father, a general and ruler of the lands he fought for. Even at this stage in her life, she was a temptress and more often than not didn't care a thing for the kind of reputation that sort of activity would spawn. This infuriated those her father had entrusted to watch her, but her antics did not change one bit. Under the tutelage of Lady Anna, Liliana learned the healing arts, though secretly she also dabbled into the forbidden arts of necromancy, thinking the manipulation of death would enhance her healing abilities. Liliana's privileged life would come to an abrupt end, though, when her brother Josu suffered a horrible corruption at the hands of her father's enemies. As a test, perhaps as much to rein in the reckless girl, Lady Anna gave her the task of gathering the required Isis root to cure her brother. Unfortunately, she arrived too late, as her father's dark enemies had razed the groves where the Isis tree had grown. She only learned of this fact when she encountered a strange man who claimed to be a supporter of her father. He offered his assistance and instructed Liliana to use necromancy to reactivate the remains of the Isis tree and prepare a potion out of it, though he warned that her family would not want her to use this cure. She returned to the castle, and despite the warnings of Lady Anna, she used the cure. Truly, it cured Josu of his affliction, but only at the cost of driving him insane and poisoning him anew. Realizing that she had to kill the crazed creature that Josu had become, Liliana turned his victims into zombies to fight him. At that moment, she unlocked her planeswalker's spark and ended up on Innistrad. On Innistrad, Liliana perfected her necromantic skills, preferring the black art of the ghoul callers over the blue method of stitchers, for which she had no patience. She studied under vampires and liches, but, fearing her brother's fate, refused to join them in death to fully master the art. At some point, she encountered the Lord of Innistrad, Sorin Markov. They dueled, and Sorin crushed her and pronounced her too weak to be a threat. Then he told her that Innistrad was his, and that she better be a civil guest, or he'd find and kill her. Once confident of her abilities, she returned to the ruins of the Vess estate in Dominaria, vowing to enact revenge on the mysterious man who tricked her to curse Josu. During the confrontation, the so-called Raven Man escaped. At some point after the mending, a severely weakened Bolas met with a wizened Liliana Vess. She was jealous of the fact that he was seemingly unaffected by the mending. He berated her, stating that he had lost more power than she could learn in a dozen lifetimes. Bolas lamented that only a few years previously, planeswalkers like them were akin to living gods who exerted their power and influence throughout the multiverse. Bolas then brokered a deal with the 4 demons who would give Liliana her youth and a fraction of her old power back in exchange for servitude. Liliana eventually found her way to Ravnica, where she was a resident for some time and often acted as a freelance hire of Tezzeret's Infinite Consortium. She became acquainted with Jace Beleren, whom she tracked down after his defection from the Consortium. She befriended the Mind Mage and his accomplice, Callista Roca, and eventually seduced Jace, having a torrid affair with him. Her loyalty appeared ironclad, staying with Jace even whilst he was in the throes of an identity crisis, believing himself to be calloused. However, her motives eventually came to light as less than altruistic. She ultimately betrayed Jace, maneuvering him to fight Tezzeret even as he tried to run further from his troubles. Later, it is revealed that her actions were supported by Bolas, with whom she had made a bargain to free her of the demonic pact in exchange for control over Tezzeret's usurped organization. The deal amounted to naught in the end. Several times throughout her plot, she considered backing down and running away with Jace, but each time her fear of her demons got the better of her affections for Jace. Kothafed, one of the 4 demons, gave Liliana the task to search for an ancient and powerful relic known as the Chain Veil from the ancient ogre civilization of the Onaki on Chandalar, a plane Liliana had visited before. On her way to the Onaki catacombs, she was assaulted by a beast and slew it, unknowingly earning the ire of Garrick Wildspeaker. Garrick attacked her in the temple after she had located the veil and tracked her through the hidden tunnels until he was dispatched by the veil-enhanced Liliana. Reveling in the power granted by the veil, Liliana assaulted a fortress on yet another unnamed plane and conquered it in short order. Sitting upon the throne, she realized that Kothafed had sent her after the artifact and should have expected her to use it for herself. She then planeswalked to Kothafed's sanctuary and confronted him. A fight ensued after she refused to relinquish the veil to the demon, and she blew him apart while his words echoed in her mind. She collapsed to her knees afterwards in pain as the tattoos that Kothafed himself had given her began to bleed. All throughout Liliana's life, an ominous conspiracy has followed her. From the poison she used to cure Josu to her acquisition of the veil, it was all seemingly orchestrated by the same mysterious figure, a being known only as the Raven Man. Even when pursuing her own business, she was never far from the veil's influence, unknowingly even being in the same room as the key to the veil's location once before, dispatching an angel sent to protect the world from the artifact's secrets. After her battle with Kothafed, she sought whatever knowledge she could gain to end the constant bleeding and enduring pain that racked her body and soul. She returned to the plane of the Onaki and resurrected the body of the wisest man who knew of the Onaki. However, her desecration earned her the ire of every citizen of the town, and they tracked her to a farmhouse and set it on fire with her inside. Much to Liliana's frustration and surprise, the man she had raised did not act at all like the shambling corpse she expected, going so far as to carry her higher as the fires spread, speaking in cryptic riddles centered around Liliana herself all the while. As the necromancer was about to give up and succumb to her woes, the corpse tilted his hand and revealed his true identity, that of the Raven Man himself. He used a vial of what appeared to be the same potion Liliana had used on Josu, and its golden glow spread throughout her tattoos, turning them the same color and healing her wounds. Aware now of the being she had been speaking to, she stabbed him. Donning the veil once more, she planeswalked away. Liliana traveled to Innistrad to deal with another of her demonic masters. However, Griselbrand had gone missing after a duel with the Archangel Avacyn, leaving Liliana with the problem of searching for her tormentor if she wished to possess her soul once again. Unfortunately, she was not the only one hunting, as Garrick had tracked her to the world. He crossed her path once in Nephalia, but she raised a swarm of ghouls to defend herself. He slew all of the undead, but it was enough to allow Liliana to escape. Her searches then pointed her towards the Church of Avacyn, and she refused to let them stand in her way. That search brought her to the High Cathedral of the city of Thraben, at the critical moment where an undead army, commanded by Giza and Geralf, had besieged the city. Geralf killed Macaeus the Lunarch, the highest official in the Church of Avacyn, and probably one of the few who could tell her where Griselbrand was. With her purpose firmly in mind, she retrieved and resurrected the corpse of the dead Lunarch, turning him into a zombie. Her machinations bore fruit, and she learned the resting place of her prey. Unfortunately, she could do little to free him from the Hell Vault herself, but she knew of ways around that. She wove a spell upon the Hell Vault and gave the choice to the Cathar Thalia. The spell would either destroy the vault or kill the soldiers under her command. The choice laid in Thalia's hands, and as Liliana predicted, Thalia chose to save her men. The spell shattered the Hell Vault, freeing Griselbrand and Avacyn. Liliana then tracked Griselbrand down, slaughtering both angels and demons alike until she finally cornered him. Griselbrand attempted to bribe her with promises of power, but Liliana saw through his lies and used the Chain Veil to kill Griselbrand once and for all before leaving Innistrad. After killing Griselbrand, Liliana was besieged by whispers emanating from the Chain Veil itself. Seeking answers, she returned again to Chandalar and journeyed to the Onake Temple. Arriving at the ruins, she was confronted by an angel guarding it. Ignoring the angel's pleas and warnings, Liliana killed her. At death's door, the angel mumbled that Liliana was a vessel for the Onaki spirits seeking to release themselves. As she recovered from the effects of using the veil, Liliana was beset by a vision of the Onaki civilization in the past and its subsequent destruction. She once again saw the Raven Man who seemed to be the architect of the Onaki's destruction. As the vision ended, Liliana taunted the spirits in the Veil about learning a similar civilization-ending spell. The unamused spirits replied in kind. Liliana eventually reached the altar where she originally found the Veil. She prepared to return it, stating that although she acknowledged its power, she would not trade 2 masters for 1,000,000 more. To her shock, her own body refused to heed her and release the Veil. In desperation, she animated the skeleton of a dead Onaki and ordered it to carry the Veil back to its altar. The skeleton took the Veil but refused to follow her orders. In frustration, she tried to walk away, but the skeleton followed. Even canceling the animation spell failed, as in its last moments, the skeleton lunged forward and laid the Veil on her arm. In her fury, she tried to shut out the returning voices, but finally one voice spoke directly to her with alarming clarity. Liliana saw another skeleton standing before her. Within seconds, an illusion appeared over it, showing the skeleton as belonging to an ancient Onaki. Furious, Liliana attacked, but her spells passed through the spirit. The Onaki referred to her as their vessel and called the chain veil a veil of deceit. He stated that soon Liliana would learn its truths. Tiring of the ogre's taunts, Liliana drew on the veil's power and dissipated the ghost. Pain racked her body as she began to realize that the veil's after effects were getting more painful and damaging with each use. As she hoped that the curse was finally over, Liliana realized that the veil would still not leave her and the whispers were still there. Tired, in pain, and utterly defeated, Liliana Vess left Chandelar and planeswalked away. Liliana arrived on Ravnica and met with her former lover Jace to persuade him to help her kill her 2 remaining debtors. Jace questioned her on her actions in the past few years. He was furious with her actions with Garruk Wildspeaker and berated her for using the chain veil, which would try to turn her into a demon. She managed to assuage him and persuaded him to join her for dinner. It was interrupted by the arrival of Gideon Jura, who begged Jace for help with the Eldrazi on Zendikar. When Jace asked her to help him, she refused. She then questioned him on why he would go with the muscle-bound gorilla and not help her. Jace replied that Gideon had openly and eagerly asked him for help rather than seduce, blackmail, and attempt to bribe him like she was doing. A furious Liliana stalked off where she was waylaid and taunted by the Raven Man, who offered her help. Liliana, knowing how any past deals with the mysterious entity had worked out, attempted to assault him, but the Raven Man vanished again, his taunting words and mocking laughter in her ears. During the period of time that Jace and the Gatewatch fought and defeated Kozilek and Ulamog, Liliana returned to her estate on Innistrad to rest after her encounter with the Raven Man. She quietly observed the strange happenings on the plane and tightened her own defenses. When Jace arrived, being chased by several werewolves, she directed her zombies to drive them off. She then played host and questioned him on his recent actions on Zendikar as his reason for coming to Innistrad. Upon learning that he was searching for Soren Markov, she was startled and attempted to dissuade him. At Markov Manor, Jace found only death and destruction, and at the Drown Yard, he found zombies. Under the influence of the Cryptoliths, he began to suspect Liliana. He returned to her manor and tried to mentally assault her. However, the Raven Man protected her and tried to convince her to kill Jace. Liliana refused, bringing Jace back to his senses. During the course of their talk, the maddening influence of the Cryptoliths reasserted itself, and Jace asked Liliana for the direction of Thraben in order to confront Avacyn. A hunched-over man named Jared, presumably human, then appeared from the shadows. He informed Liliana that his master, the Geist Mage Dirk, was ready for her and asked her to bring the chain veil to him in the tower. With a Witchbane orb, they tried to exorcise the Onaki spirits from the veil, but were unsuccessful. After Emrakul arrived on Innistrad, Soren Markov and Olivia Voldaren assembled a vampire army and went to war against Nahiri, berating Liliana for destroying the Hell Vault and releasing the Lithomancer on the plane. Liliana was ready to abandon Innistrad as a lost cause, but changed her mind when she considered her feelings for Jace. Telling herself that it wasn't that she needed Jace, but that she needed people to need her so that she would have some protection against her demon enemies, she began to raise a zombie army to fight the Eldrazi horrors overrunning Innistrad. When Liliana arrived in Thraben, where the concentration of Eldrazi horrors was highest, her reception by the Gatewatch was poor, Nissa having felt the dark magic radiating from the chain veil. Confronted directly with the Eldrazi Titan, Liliana began to lose control over her zombie servants. Both the Chainveil and the Raven Man urged her to flee and leave Innistrad behind. Asserting herself against both, she drew even more on the power of the Chainveil than ever before, feeling close to the power she had wielded before the Mending. While that power protected her against Emrakul's insidious influence and allowed her to attack the Titan directly, it also took a great toll on her body, leaving her near death. When she reawakened, Emrakul had been sealed in Innistrad's moon by the Gatewatch and Tamiyo, and her wounds had been healed by the other Planeswalkers. Seeing that a group of allies could be useful for her long-term plans, she decided to join the Gatewatch, albeit with the intention of directing them for her own plans. When the Gatewatch established their headquarters in Jace's apartments on Ravnica, Liliana refused to move in, instead buying her own mansion. She was present when Dovin Baan arrived to hire the Gatewatch, but reminded him that they worked only against greater interplanar threats, like other planeswalkers or entities like the Eldrazi. She then took care of the upset Chandra and planeswalked along with her to Kaladesh. Arriving in Girapur, Liliana goaded Chandra to act against the consulate that had murdered her parents. Searching for renegade sympathizers, the pair came across a mosaic of Kiran Nalaar, Chandra's deceased father. Upon hearing the story how Chandra's spark had ignited, Liliana advised her to seek revenge against Betrayal. On their way through Girapur, the pair came across a disturbance, seeing a hooded man referred to as the head judge confronting an inventor referred to as Renegade Prime. Liliana recognized the head judge as Tezzeret. When Renegade Prime, revealed to be Pia Nalaar, was captured, Liliana persuaded Chandra to retreat instead of head-on confronting Tezzeret, remembering what the Artificer had done to Jace. The newly arrived Nissa berated her for taking Chandra to Kaladesh without first approaching the others and for provoking Chandra to act against the consulate. Knowing she could not risk to lose two valuable assets to her long-term plans, Liliana left the pair to find her own answers. She planeswalked back to Ravnica and warned Jace, alerting him to bring Gideon with him to Kaladesh. Meeting with Nissa and Chandra, as well as the newly arrived Leonin Ajani Goldmane, the group saw an announcement that the renegade Pia Nalaar would face head judge Tezzeret in a quick smithing duel. Using illusions, they mixed in with the crowd at the arena and confronted Tezzeret when he was about to deliver the final blow to Pia. Instead of fighting the Gatewatch, Tezzeret announced that the Inventor's Fair was concluded and he retreated. Confused, the Gatewatch learned that the spectacle of their arrival had been a part of a great distraction that Tezzeret had used to confiscate numerous inventions and inventors. Liliana and the Gatewatch joined forces with the Renegades to find a way to strike against the Artificer. During their time on Kaladesh, Liliana and Gideon clashed, when Gideon reprimanded her for the use of lethal force against consulate troops. Liliana answered that that was her best tool to hide their presence and complained that the Gatewatch was wasting its time. They should strike at Tezzeret directly instead of working together with the Renegades in their conflict against the consulate. She warned him that Tezzeret wouldn't fight fair and that she would end him for hurting something important to her. When Saheeli Rai revealed the location of Tezzeret, Liliana volunteered to accompany her. While they didn't reach the Metal Mage, the pair discovered that Rashmi had escaped and that her invention had been rebuilt and expanded to allow contact to other planes. They brought the elf away to the Renegades. Liliana again pressed Gideon to allow her to face and kill Tezzeret, telling him that she would serve as a distraction so that the Hope of Girapur could destroy the planar bridge. Using her zombies to frighten the consulate soldiers away, who had never seen undead before, she reached the Ether Spire and ascended to the top, where Tezzeret stood above the planar bridge. The pair fought, Tezzeret using his metal magic, and Liliana her command over death. Tezzeret questioned her allegiance to the Gatewatch and tried to incite her against Jace, telling her that he had made her weak. Liliana learned that Tezzeret had been on Kaladesh on Bolas's command and that he had first believed that the dragon had sent her to observe his progress. Liliana managed to overwhelm him and asked him where Bolas had hidden. Under pain, Tezzeret revealed it to be Amonkhet, the plane where Razaketh, one of the demons she had sold her soul to, dwelled. Before she could finish him, Chandra and Gideon crashed into the planar bridge, destroying it but allowing Tezzeret the chance to escape. Following their victory, Liliana advised the Gatewatch to strike directly against Bolas, seeing that with Tezzeret alive, their security was compromised. When the Gatewatch arrived on Amonkhet, they found themselves under attack from zombies. Liliana managed to take control over several of them, but was later swallowed whole by a worm. Initially thought dead, she later decomposed the worm from within through use of the Chainveil. As the Gatewatch arrived on Noctamoon, Liliana was as surprised as the rest of them, since she had never seen this part of the world before. When the natives of the city greeted, Liliana took notice of the mummified servants, which delighted her. She derided the notion of gods as pretensions, since the only gods she had ever known were hubristic planeswalkers. While the rest of the Gatewatch was underway to learn more about Bolas in the plane, Liliana instead used shades to spy, using the time to retreat and think about how to direct the Gatewatch against Razaketh. Her musings were interrupted by the Raven Man, who revealed that he had watched over her since the events on Innistrad. He warned Liliana to not become too entangled with her new allies, suspecting that she had gotten soft. When Jace approached, the Raven Man vanished again, leaving the two alone to discuss the plane. The two followed a shade servant of hers to a place inscribed with Razaketh's symbols. Inside, Liliana and Jace witnessed the creation process of the Anointed out of those who had died in combat, as well as a mural that implied Razaketh's involvement in the afterlife. Learning of her motivations with the demon, Jace accused her of betraying their trust. As they spoke, Temet arrived and set the mummies against them after becoming suspicious of their origins. With Jace's aid, the two managed to escape. After the second sun had come to rest between Bolas's horn monument, the gate to the afterlife opened. Razaketh stood revealed before the population of Noctamoon, much to their horror and dismay. At the demon's command, the Luxa turned to blood, while he uttered a challenge to Liliana. Using a hidden clause in their contract, Razaketh managed to take control over Liliana's body, calling her towards him. He toyed with her until he was intercepted by the Gatewatch, who surprised him enough for Liliana to free herself. Using her necromantic magic to take control over the dead beasts in the Luxa, she tore him apart and let her undead feast on his remains. The Gatewatch discovered that Bolas had been creating an army of Eternals, highly trained fighting specialists which had been zombified while keeping their skills intact. When they confronted the dragon, they were soundly defeated. Liliana betrayed her friends and fled to another plane, knowing that she would have to repay Bolas for sparing her life. Liliana planeswalked to Dominaria, where she was soon reunited with the rest of the Gatewatch. Confronted by an angry Nissa and a hurt Chandra, she tried to defend her position, arguing that she would not be of any use against Bolas when she was still indebted to her demon masters. Revealing that her last demonic debtor, Belzenlock, was on Dominaria, she tried to convince the rest of the Gatewatch to help her destroy him. Nissa left in disgust, while Chandra went away to become stronger. Only Gideon chose to remain with her. Trying to heal him, they entered the ruined settlement of Vess, learning that the Cabal had come to her homeland and turned the forest into a marshland. She also received the news that her family's fate had become a legend and none of her relatives survived. When she went to gather herbs to heal Gideon, she discovered that the manor still stood. When she returned, Vess was under attack by the Cabal. Using her necromantic magic to take control over one of the zombies, she learned that their master was none other than her brother Josu, who had been transformed into a lich by Belzenlock's cultists. Searching for answers, she went into the marsh to search for the Raven Man. When the being manifested itself, she asked him to free her brother from the Cabal. The Raven Man declined, stating that if she missed her brother so much, she would have agreed to follow him. Liliana realized that Belzenlock had used her brother to divert her strength, knowing that if she used the Chainveil to destroy Josu, she would be too weak to use the artifact against him. Telling Gideon what she had learned, she expected him to abandon her like the rest of the Gatewatch. Instead, the Hieromancer agreed in helping her lay her brother to rest. As Gideon rallied the defenders of Benalia, Liliana explained the capabilities of the Cabal's servants to them. When the Benalish forces clashed with the Cabal, she contacted the Lich that was once her brother. The enraged Lich left his hideout to confront her, only for Liliana to destroy him. Dying, Josu cursed her, telling her of the fate of their family and how it was her dark magic that had brought their house low. He also told her that the void awaited her. Disturbed and weakened, she and Gideon teamed up with the Weatherlight crew to fight the Cabal and defeat Belzenlock. After learning of the existence of the Black Blade, they realized this soul drinker could be a possible weapon in their fight against the Elder Demon. This proved to be true, and together they managed to kill Belzenlok. After the Gatewatch cleaned up on Dominaria, they left for Ravnica and the ultimate fight with Nicol Bolas. Intending to follow her friends, Liliana found out that she was unable to. Suddenly, Nicol Bolas materialized out of the darkness, pointing out that her pact with the demons was still in order. With all 4 demons dead, the contract had been defaulted to its broker, Bolas himself. He also explained that if she disobeyed his orders in any way, the pact would kill her. She would age hundreds of years in a moment and become a desiccated husk to be blown away in the wind. Sick at heart, bound like a prisoner to a new incarnation of a fate she had schemed so long to cheat, Liliana left the Gatewatch and followed Bolas off the plane. If you like this video, please subscribe to Snapkeep Arcade and hit that bell icon to get notified whenever I upload a new video. This has been Boots with Snapkeep Arcade. Thanks for watching.